The real earliest source for this is a rabbi called Rabbi Edward Baneth. Also in Hebrew, he's called Yechezkel, and his last name is Bennett. You could say Bennett. But in English, they say Edward Baneth, and he died in 1930. Now, he was an Orthodox rabbi, but he was a bit of a, an edgy figure a little bit. Now, because he taught in the University for the Study of Judaism in Berlin. So he was like an early, scholarly, rabbi type figure, Nowadays, what he's kind of most famous for is that one of his students was Regina Jonas, who was considered to be the first woman rabbi ever. And she was a student. He didn't give her smicha or anything, but she was a student of his. Now, he gave a speech. He gave a lecture on the Seder, and this was published in Berlin in 1904. And this lecture was one of the very, very first kind of academic approaches to the Haggadah. But it's not it's like the early time of working all this stuff out, right? Early 1900s. And in this, and it's not really 100% like a dry lecture. It has like some neshama to it, And in it, he says that when he was young, when he was still a boy, he heard this explanation. So here in 1904, he reports this explanation. And he even says, it's an open question whether this is historically true, but it has the spirit of Yiddishkeit in it. So he himself knew, as he's saying it to the audience there, that it's like a new thing and all of that. So 1904 is the earliest explanation that is written down that has this. He says he heard it as a boy. So where did he hear it as a boy? There's a Rabbi Eliyahu Klatskin. Now, Rabbi Eliyahu Klatskin, there's a 3-year age difference between him and Rabbi Baneth. Okay, so they're contemporaries, and he gives this explanation also in a work of his, which is called Kuntras Ledugma, and he writes this explanation too. The thing is that Kuntras Ledugma comes out in the 1920s, so it's after Rabbi Baneth, but he reports it too. So what do we see? That two contemporaries at the same time are reporting this thing.
Yeah.
So it was in the air somehow in the early 1900s. But again, since his book was put out in 1921, like the earliest dated one is still Edward Baneth. He's still the one. But again, it's around the same time. However, there's another book, and this book is called Divrei Yirmiyahu. Now, the Sefer Divrei Yirmiyahu is a collection of drashot from a Hungarian rabbi called Rav Yirmiyahu Low. Rav Yirmiyahu Low, he died in 1874. So we can say he's like a generation before Rabbi Klatskin and Rabbi Baneth. At the end of Divrei Yirmiyahu, Rav Binyamin Zev Low says that his grandfather, Rav Yirmiyahu Low, who's the author, that's the book of his drashot, he came up with this explanation.